In my previous life, my half-sister and I were married on the same day. As the legitimate daughter, I was appointed as the crown princess. She, on the other hand, was betrothed by our father to the over 50-year-old minister of personnel as his second wife. Who would have thought that on the day of the grand wedding, she schemed to swap our marriages? By the time I rushed to the Eastern Palace, she had already consummated her marriage with the crown prince. She thought that with her beauty and schemes, she could climb step by step to greater heights, but she underestimated the power of my maternal grandfather's family. Despite all her calculations, in the end, she only managed to secure the title of a concubine. But throughout my life, I was never favored by the crown prince, bearing the empty title of empress. I wasted my days in the deep palace. On the day the city fell, I drew my sword and killed the emperor and my half-sister, the imperial consort. I took poison and set my cunning palace ablaze. When I opened my eyes again, I had actually returned to the time before my wedding. I smiled as I put on the wedding dress, personally sending my half-sister into the Eastern Palace. In this life, it is my turn to be the one playing the game of chess. Before my half-sister and I were married, my father had once entered the palace. Soon, the eunuch brought 2 sets of phoenix crowns and ceremonial robes to the prime minister's residence, saying that the emperor and empress, in recognition of my father's hard work and great contributions, had specially bestowed these gifts. My half-sister stared at the exceptionally luxurious wedding dress, her eyes gleaming. The wedding dress was embroidered with golden threads depicting a flying phoenix holding a pearl in its beak. The craftsmanship of the palace embroiderers was beyond doubt, but what was truly remarkable was the pearl, which originally adorned the empress's phoenix crown. It had been specially ordered by the Imperial Wardrobe Bureau to be embroidered onto the crown princess's wedding dress. I know that this honor is because of my maternal grandfather's family behind me, the Meng family of Yunzhong. Aunt Lian patted my half-sister's hand to comfort her, and only then did she reluctantly withdraw her gaze. I stared blankly at that touch of red, my mind completely empty. Have I been reborn? I could no longer hear what my father was saying. The surrounding sounds receding like the tide, my eyes were fixed solely on that wedding dress, its color as red as the fire that had engulfed Kuan Ning Palace. Zhao Hua, seeing me in a daze, my father spoke coldly. You are the eldest legitimate daughter, you should set an example as the older sister. Shiwei is marrying beneath her status, which is already a grievance. Why not yield to her a little? Yield what? For a moment, I didn't understand. But when I looked up and saw the 2 starkly contrasting wedding dresses, it suddenly became clear. I am a member of the Pei family. In such a small matter, I naturally defer to father's arrangements. Father stroked his beard and nodded, truly worthy of being the legitimate daughter of the Pei family. Such composure is only fitting. I've grown tired of hearing such perfunctory words. My half-sister's face instantly turned cold. She competes with me over everything, from the position of crown princess down to a single word of praise from our father. In my previous life, I argued with my father on principle. The crown princess's wedding dress should adhere to the proper rituals, and I firmly refused to exchange it, which angered my father. I looked at the palace maid, Madame Song, who had been sent to teach me the rules. She was the wet nurse of Crown Prince Xiao Chengsheng, and they were as close as mother and son. The etiquette matron for the crown princess has always been someone from the empress's palace. In my previous life, I thought this was a special favor from the crown prince. It wasn't until the night before my wedding, when my father punished me by kneeling in the ancestral hall. Matron Song stood outside the ancestral hall and said calmly, "The crown princess is destined to be the mother of the nation. If she lacks even this much tolerance, how can she be worthy of standing by the crown prince's side?" I once thought it was because the palace rules were strict, so when my father scolded me, she remained silent. Later, in the palace, I saw her looking affectionately at my half-sister as she accompanied the crown prince. Only then did I realize that everyone around the crown prince knew who he truly loved. It's just a pity that I was kept in the dark all along. In this life, I will let you 2 be together. Thank you, sister, for your understanding. My half-sister thanked me reluctantly, her eyes filled with a determined ambition for power. I simply smiled and said, May you also achieve what you wish for. The crown princess never survives in the palace by relying solely on the crown prince's favor. Then let me see, as a mere common-born daughter, bearing the title of crown princess, how you will survive in that treacherous eastern palace. I slept restlessly at night, my dreams were filled with fire. On the day Xinjing city fell, I held a long sword and personally executed Emperor Xianxia, along with my common-born sister Pei Shiwei, who was the imperial consort. I carried their heads to meet the enemy commander. I knelt in the pool of blood and made 3 agreements with the enemy general. Upon entering the city, there would be no burning, killing, looting, or rape, and the people must be treated well. Originally, I had intended to present the map of the Great Jew as a gesture of goodwill. However, the Shu clan of Qingchuan was more pragmatic than I, having already presented the map before my arrival, securing the lives of their entire clan. Finally, I fulfilled my duty as the empress for the Great Jew. I set my cunning palace ablaze. Fearing that death might not be enough, I also took poison, before I died. I regretted why I had let a moment of pride drive me to compete with Pei Shiwei for the position of crown princess, thus burying my entire life in the depths of the palace. Xiao Chengcheng does not love me. I do not love him either. Xiao Chengcheng is hypocritical and cowardly, indulging in women. Although he is the crown prince, he holds no real power. I look down on him from the bottom of my heart. At that time, the fortunes of the great Zhou dynasty were waning. Yet the lineage of the noble families remained as prosperous as ever. It could even be said that the ones holding sway over the court were the Meng clan of Yunzhong and the Shu clan of Qingchuan. This was precisely why my father, a prime minister, would betroth his cherished daughter to the minister of personnel, who was already past his 50s, because that minister's surname was Shu. Back in the day, the only daughter of the Meng family head in Yunzhong married the poor scholar Pei Tingqian. Although he later rose step by step to become the prime minister of the dynasty, he was always criticized by the noble families for the mismatch in social status, and I am precisely the granddaughter of that legitimate daughter, the only granddaughter of the Yunzhong Meng family. Since childhood, everyone has told me, Pei Chaohua, the blood of the Meng family flows in your veins. In the future, you are destined to stand above all but one. Thus, I dared not slack off for a single day, personally supporting the mud-like Xiao Chengsheng onto the throne. I reviewed memorials for him, stabilized the political situation, toiled day and night, and exhausted all my efforts, only to be branded as a wicked queen who brought disaster to the nation. Yet he, indulging in pleasures, neglected the affairs of state. When the country fell and the city was captured, he didn't even have the courage to die for his nation, only thinking of fleeing with Pei Shiwei. I ordered them to be bound and brought to the city wall. I wanted him to see with his own eyes the great general who had defended the nation's gates for him, and who, even after death, was hung up and humiliated. That young corpse was hung high at the top of the mast, far away, its features unclear, yet it broke my heart to the core. I want him to see the displaced people in the city, wailing everywhere. They are his subjects, nourishing the royal family with their flesh and blood, only to be discarded lightly like a piece of rotten cloth in the end. In my life, there have been too many regrets, whether it was wasting time in the deep palace or the fall of the nation and the destruction of my home. All the unwillingness turned to ashes in that great fire. The side gate of the Prime Minister's residence quietly opened, and a letter was taken out by my personal maid, Chuanxi, and delivered to a merchant house in Shengjing marked with the Meng family's cloud pattern. 3 days later, I burned the reply from my maternal grandfather's family over a candle flame. In the blink of an eye, the auspicious day determined by the Imperial Astronomical Bureau arrived. The bridesmaid chanted auspicious words as she dressed me up, first comb to the end, second comb to white hair and eyebrows together. It was at this moment that Pei Shiwei burst into my boudoir in a flurry. She was wearing the wedding dress that the Imperial Wardrobe Bureau had tailored for the crown princess of the Eastern Palace, brilliant and dazzling. It made her even more charming and alluring. "Sister, look, doesn't this wedding dress suit me even better?" Pei Shiwei spread her arms and twirled in front of me, showing off with no small amount of pride. The atmosphere in the room shifted slightly. and everyone quickly suppressed their smiles. This phoenix robe originally belonged to the crown princess, yet she, a mere second wife, had the audacity to wear it openly. Such an act was far too presumptuous. But Pei Shui saw nothing wrong with it. Her eyes and brows were filled with unconcealed pride and satisfaction. I stood up and, under the anxious gazes of everyone, walked toward her and raised my hand. The bridesmaids and maidservants thought I was about to lose my temper and instinctively held their breath, not daring to make a sound. I merely chuckled softly, straightening Pei Shui's crooked golden hairpin, my tone as gentle as that of an elder sister seeing her younger sister off to marriage. You're about to be married, yet you're still so careless. From now on, no one will indulge you anymore. The deep palace is quiet and secluded. Let's see if this weak and incompetent crown prince can truly shield you from the storms. Pei Shui was taken aback for a moment, then suddenly slapped my hand away with a sharp sound. You'd better mind your own business, sister. I have long been in perfect harmony with that person, and they will surely treat me like a precious gem. I glanced down at the red mark on my wrist and curled the corner of my lips. Then I wish you, dear sister, may all your wishes come true. Urgent calls came from outside the house, and only then did Pei Shui leave with her head held high. The bridal chamber fell into a deathly silence, so quiet that the drop of a pin could be heard. No longer filled with the previous liveliness and joy, I sat back down in front of the dressing mirror, looked at the cautious expression of the bridesmaid in the bronze mirror, and spoke calmly. Let's continue. The bridesmaid hastily picked up the comb and continued to comb my hair, but her movements were much more careful than before, as if afraid I would vent my anger on them. I truly wasn't angry, and I genuinely wished Pei Shui well. After all, if she couldn't marry Xiao Chengsheng, what fun would there be for me to watch? Today, Shengjing was exceptionally lively, with the entire city discussing the weddings of the two daughters of the Prime Minister's household, the legitimate daughter married into the Eastern Palace as the Crown Princess, while the illegitimate daughter was betrothed to the Minister of Personnel as his second wife. Both were considered heavenly matches, a beautiful tale to be told, amidst the joyful sounds of music and singing. I was carried into the residence of the Minister of Personnel. The Master of Ceremonies loudly proclaimed, "First bow to heaven and earth." I reached out and lifted the red veil, tossing it to the ground. Under the gaze of all the guests, I took my seat in the main position reserved for the second bow to the elders. The guests erupted in murmurs, casting sidelong glances, still unable to process what had just happened. Minister Shu's wrinkled old face twitched slightly, his lips smacking faintly. Exuding a subtle, sinister aura, with a wave of his hand, the steward understood his meaning and politely escorted the guests out one by one. Even the son and daughter-in-law of Minister Shu were asked to leave. The vast hall suddenly fell silent, leaving only Minister Shu and me sitting opposite each other. The gaze that had been fixed on me finally disappeared. "Miss Pei," Minister Shu slowly began, a glint of shrewdness flashing in his eyes. "I wonder where my bride has gone. What do you think?" Minister Shu stared at me for a moment before suddenly letting out a light laugh. "What does the Prime Minister mean by this? If you are unwilling to marry your sister to my family, you could have said so directly. Why go to such lengths to mock the Shu family?" Minister Shu naturally did not believe that the only granddaughter of the Yunzhong Meng family had come as a substitute bride. Of course, someone intended to disrupt the bloodline of the Eastern Palace and orchestrated this marriage swap. Minister Shu's smile gradually faded. If Pei Shui had merely fled the wedding, he would have only suffered a temporary loss of face, becoming the subject of idle gossip for a few days. But if Pei Shui was truly in the Eastern Palace at this moment, if the matter escalated, his Shu family would likely be held accountable. In my previous life, after the marriage swap incident, he was demoted and sent away from the capital. He spent half his fortune just to stay in Shengjing, and his end was miserable. "What do you want?" he asked bluntly. "No rush," I replied, taking a sip of tea and lightly tapping my fingers on the table, calculating the time it would take for the palace messenger to arrive. Seeing me so calm and composed, Minister Shu had no choice but to relent. I casually brought up his son as if making small talk. "I've heard that the young master of the Shongshu mansion has a face like the moon of mid-autumn." with a complexion like the flowers of a spring dawn. Miss Pei, if you have something to say, please speak plainly. The people of Shengjing all saw my bridal sedan chair enter your mansion, and my reputation is already ruined, I said calmly. But as a daughter of the Yunzhong Meng family, I will never become your second wife. Shu is certainly not worthy of such a high match. Minister Shu smiled with a hint of insincerity. I have taken a liking to your son. Minister Shu spat out his tea in shock, choking until his eyes turned red, and quickly waved his hand, saying, Miss Pei, with your noble status and destined fate, is like a phoenix, while my son is merely a lowborn child, unworthy of such an honor. Footsteps drew near, and I slowly rose, looking toward the door. You don't have the final say in this. As soon as the words fell, a sharp, high-pitched voice suddenly rang out from outside. By the Emperor's decree, summon Minister Shu and Miss Pei for an audience. I smiled slightly. My grandfather's people were indeed timely. I entered the palace together with Minister Shu to have an audience with the Emperor. In the Grand Hall, the Emperor and Empress sat side by side, their expressions naturally dignified and imposing. The Crown Prince knelt in the center of the hall, his wedding attire slightly disheveled, with a faint bruise at the corner of his mouth, as if he had been in a scuffle with someone. Yet in such a dire situation, he stubbornly refused to let go of Pei Shui's hand, as if he and Pei Shui would remain kneeling forever unless the Emperor and Empress agreed to their union. How deeply devoted, I couldn't help but sigh, yet my gaze was drawn to the tall, upright young man standing beside them. Cousin, I never would have thought that the person sent by the Yunzhong Meng clan would be him, the future head of the Meng family in Yunzhong. The top-ranked young master among aristocratic families, Meng Yuanji. My heart trembled, and I was immediately awakened by the Empress's scolding. Are you truly determined to marry Pei Shui? The Empress could hardly conceal her anger. She is a concubine-born daughter, unworthy of being the crown princess. Mother, I care not for the opinions of the world. I only know she is the one I love in my heart. Xiao Chengxing replied solemnly. The Emperor's brow furrowed slightly, as if in helplessness, and he turned to me. Chaohua, would you be willing to share a husband with another woman? I understood the Emperor's unspoken implication. All eyes turned to me in unison. After all, I am considered the greatest victim in this case. I slowly stepped forward and bowed respectfully. Your Majesty, I have only just learned today that His Highness the Crown Prince and my half-sister have long been in love. Today, I boarded the wrong bridal sedan but married the right man. Which also proves it was a destined match. Therefore, I am willing to step down from the position of Crown Princess to allow the two of them to be together. The Empress sneered coldly. You certainly put it elegantly. The rights and wrongs, the truth and falsehood, were as clear as day to everyone present. The Empress would not have been so enraged. A slight punishment would have sufficed to let the matter pass lightly. Just like in my previous life, I remained the Crown Princess, while my half-sister was appointed as the Crown Prince's consort. Unfortunately, it was the Meng family, my maternal relatives, who happened to expose this scandal. This time, it was even Meng Yuanji, the future head of the Meng family, who came. The royal family must provide an explanation. I remained composed, neither avoiding nor yielding, though my voice trembled with emotion. I, your humble subject, am also aggrieved. But since the matter has already come to pass, I beg your majesties to grant the two of them your blessing. After a moment of silence in the hall, I could already hear murmurs and discussions among those present, truly worthy of being raised with the Meng family's upbringing. The difference between you and that illegitimate child is like night and day. Pei Shui trembled slightly, her eyes fixed on me with a venom that could not be concealed. The Empress asked, since you speak of yielding, are you truly willing to step aside? I, your humble daughter, am willing from the bottom of my heart. The Empress was about to speak further, but the Emperor raised his hand to stop her and looked at me, saying, I cannot let the Meng family feel disheartened. Tell me, what is your request? I presented the same explanation I had given to Minister Shu. The Emperor immediately summoned Minister Shu to come forward and answer. Minister Shu, do you have any sons in your family who are not yet married? Minister Shu replied. Your servant has a younger son born of a concubine, who is somewhat clever and has earned the title of Jiyuan. He will participate in the imperial examinations next spring." The emperor stroked his beard thoughtfully and asked, "Is his name Shu Huisheng?" "Indeed, it is. I have long heard that this young man is both talented and handsome, a perfect match for Zhao Hua, truly a case of a talented man and a beautiful woman. However, his status," Minister Shu hurriedly replied, "when I return, I will have him registered under my principal wife's name." The emperor laughed heartily. "That would indeed be a satisfactory resolution. I will have someone draft an edict to arrange the marriage." Meng Yuanji was about to step forward to speak, but I stopped him with a look. The empress said, "Your Majesty, Pei Shiwei is merely a concubine's daughter, and so adept at scheming, how could she ever be a mother to the nation, in my opinion? Granting her the title of a consort is already a great honor, as the empress suggests." Though her half-sister was unwilling, she had no choice but to express her gratitude to the emperor along with the crown prince. The red candles flickered, and the bridal chamber was quiet. Footsteps rustled outside the door, and with a creak, it swung open. "Miss, the young master sent me to bring you some food." Chuanxi held up a tray, on which were several pastries from Xinfang Zhai, all my favorites. I picked one up and began to eat it slowly. Chuanxi chattered incessantly like a little sparrow. "Miss, you have no idea how impressive the groom was during the wedding procession today." I chuckled softly. "How impressive was he? I've seen my fair share of gentlemen while serving you, but none can compare to the young master." "That's true. My cousin is both a scholar and a warrior, and his reputation has long resounded throughout the Great Jew. As a result, today when the young master blocked the door and posed many questions, the groom answered them fluently without even blinking. The young master said he was sincerely convinced and only then let him in." Footsteps sounded outside the door again, and the maid immediately stopped speaking. Quietly retreating, a pair of black short boots stopped in front of me. I have guessed the identity of the person who has arrived. Although he carries the scent of alcohol, his steps are steady. He simply stands before me, taking no further action for a long while. "Husband, even though it is our wedding night, it is not appropriate for me to take the initiative." Excluding the day I was carried into the minister's residence, this was the first time I had ever met him in this lifetime. "Shu Huisheng, I have come to see you." The bridal veil was slowly lifted by the wedding scale, and the first thing that caught my eye was Shu Huisheng's hands, with knuckles as slender as bamboo. In my previous life, it was these very hands that covered mine as I held the long sword, beheading the foolish Emperor Xiao Chengxing and the treacherous consort Pei Shiwei. I looked up and met his gaze. Shu Huisheng's jade-like face suddenly flushed as red as a fiery sunset. His lips trembled for a long while before he finally managed to utter, "My lady." It was also this man who, heedless of the danger, charged into the sea of flames to join me in the afterlife. I couldn't help but let out a soft laugh. Shu Xiong has always been decisive in matters of life and death. I have never seen him so bashful before. My heart itched with impatience. For such a Shu Huisheng, it wouldn't hurt for me to take the initiative. I lightly hooked my index finger into the collar of his robe. He obediently bent down and lowered his head, following my movement. Shu Huisheng gazed at me with shimmering eyes, filled with boundless affection. I deliberately put on a flirtatious air. "My husband, a moment of spring night is worth 1,000 pieces of gold. Do not waste this precious time." Shu Huisheng was only stunned for a moment before he grasped my hand in return and said in a hoarse voice, "Darling, don't let your hand tremble." I smiled gently, feeling a blush rise to my cheeks, which instantly allowed Shu Huisheng to regain his composure. He took my hand and helped me up, leading me to sit at the table. Only when I saw the 2 cups of wine on the table did I realize I had missed a step. Shu Huisheng handed one of the cups to me. "My lady, it is time to drink the wedding wine." The dragon and phoenix wedding candles burned down inch by inch, with layers of candle wax accumulating on the candlestick. A night of wonderful springtime. Today is the day I return to my parents' home with Pei Shiwei. Shu Huisheng accompanies me back to the Prime Minister's residence. We were ready to set out early in the morning, but we were delayed for a while because we met my cousin Meng Yuanji at a tea house along the way. As soon as Shu Huisheng and I arrived, He was called to the study by my father to be tested on his studies in preparation for the imperial examination next spring. Pei Shui, however, arrived fashionably late, as if deliberately trying to outshine me. I had no intention of competing with her for precedence and simply took a seat in the hall to enjoy some tea. Pei Shui approached me, beaming with pride, and said, "Sister, your attire is far too shabby. True, even if you are the principal wife, what does it matter? Xu Huixing is just a concubine-born son. How could he compare to the legitimate crown prince?" I set down the teacup, glanced at her flamboyant, almost gaudy attire, and replied as she wished, naturally. "I cannot compare to the radiant splendor of my sister." Pei Shui didn't catch the sarcasm in my words. Hearing this, she felt pleased but still dissatisfied. "Sister, you are utterly lacking in manners. I am now the crown prince's concubine. You should kneel to greet me." I sneered. "What a grand face you have, sister. I am the crown prince's concubine, while you are merely the wife of a scholar without any official rank. How can you compare to my noble status?" With that, she ordered her maids to force me to kneel. I slammed my palm on the table, startling the teacup and causing it to tremble. Those people looked at Pei Shui with difficulty. "Pei Jiaohua, in the past, you always used your status as the legitimate daughter of the Prime Minister's household to oppress me. If it weren't for your mother stealing love, my mother would have been the rightful wife, and the crown princess should have been me. Really." I glanced at her disdainfully, rolled up the sleeve on my right arm, and revealed a terrifying old scar on my arm. It was this scar that made me the crown princess, and it was also this scar that allowed my father to rise rapidly in his career. Back in the day, my father, in pursuit of power, abandoned his childhood sweetheart whose family had fallen from grace. After careful scheming, he married my mother, a legitimate daughter of the Meng family, only to be scorned by the noble clans for the mismatch in status, which did nothing to aid his official career. My father then turned around and redeemed his beloved, who had fallen into a brothel, bringing her into the household as concubine Lian. My mother was driven to her death by sheer anger. I was taken to the Meng family in Yunzhong to be raised and educated, only returning to Shengjing just before my coming-of-age ceremony. During a palace banquet, sensing the presence of an assassin, I risked my life to block a fatal blow for the emperor while everyone else fled in panic. I earned the position of crown princess with my life, yet she only sees the halo of the prime minister's legitimate daughter. The emperor's decree states that I need not kneel when meeting members of the imperial family. I spoke slowly and deliberately. "Could it be that you, as the crown prince's consort, are more esteemed than the emperor himself?" Pei Shui's face instantly turned deathly pale. Frozen in place, words stuck in her throat, yet unable to come out. Just at that moment, an announcement came from outside. "The crown prince has arrived." Pei Shui immediately found her support and hurried forward to greet him, complaining with grievance. "Your Highness." Xiao Chengcheng strode in, embraced Pei Shui, glanced at me from head to toe, and then gently comforted Pei Shui. "What's wrong, my poor little kitten? Who has bullied you?" Pei Shui's tears fell like pearls. "Sister refused to bow to me and said that I am merely a crown prince's concubine, unworthy of her respect." Xiao Chengcheng's eyes darkened as he looked at me, his tone neither warm nor cold. "Chaohua, I know I have wronged you. If you hold any resentment, direct it at me. Shui is your sister. She has always been timid. Why must you be so aggressive?" I sneered coldly. "Your Highness accuses me of being aggressive, yet I was merely drinking tea earlier. It was my sister who demanded I kneel as soon as she spoke." Pei Shui quickly shook her head. "Your Highness, I have not done so. My sister is slandering me. I beg your Highness to stand up for me." Xiao Chengxing's face darkened like water. "Pei Jiaohua, Shui is more noble than you. If she wants you to bow, you must bow. If she wants you to kneel, you must kneel for me." Pei Shui nestled in Xiao Chengxing's arms, looking at me with a smug expression in her eyes. I calmly said, "Has the crown prince forgotten? On the day I entered the palace to see the emperor, I didn't even kneel. How could a mere Pei Shui surpass the emperor's majesty?" I lowered my voice and spoke unhurriedly. "Or does the crown prince already harbor rebellious intentions?" Xiao Chengxing, favored by his mother's status, was born into the queen's womb and became the crown prince from the moment of his birth, yet over the years, he has been mediocre and unremarkable, while his younger brothers have grown increasingly outstanding as they've aged. Xiao Chengxing has long been anxious. He even secretly poisoned the emperor, hoping to ascend the throne early to avoid unforeseen complications. Upon hearing this, Xiao Chengxing pushed Pei Shiwei away as if pricked by a needle, and under her stunned gaze, he slapped her across the face. Foolish woman, Pei Jiaohua is exempt from kneeling when meeting members of the imperial family by the emperor's decree. How dare you overstep your bounds? Pei Shiwei covered her face, looking at Xiao Chengxing in disbelief. I smirk, so much for love being stronger than gold. Pei Shiwei glared at me fiercely. Clearly, she was the one who provoked the situation, and it was the crown prince who struck her, yet she skillfully blamed everything on me. The crown prince flicked his sleeve and said, "This matter shall not be mentioned again." Upon receiving the servant's report, my father hurried out to welcome Xiao Chengxing. Shu Huisheng walked to my side, his eyes asking if I was all right. I shook my head gently. Just at that moment, a eunuch's sharp, high-pitched voice came from outside. Imperial decree has arrived. Everyone's expressions changed instantly, and they knelt to the ground, while I remained standing still. The Prime Minister's legitimate daughter, Pei Jiaohua, is of upright conduct and possesses a gentle, virtuous nature. She is hereby specially enfeoffed as Princess Changel, with a fief of 2,000 households, and is additionally granted a princess mansion. So it is decreed. I respectfully received the imperial edict. In my heart, I understood that this was the emperor's compensation to the Meng family of Yunzhong. As for the crown prince, his scheme with Pei Shiwei to arrange a marriage swap had angered the emperor, leading to the revocation of his fief of 2,000 households. The crown prince was furious. He didn't even eat and left directly. After lunch with Shu Huisheng and others, we left hand in hand. The carriage back to the Ministry of Personnel took a detour, and Shu Huisheng got off midway. I rested my chin on my hand, watching his back as he went to Xinfangzhai to buy snacks for me. We have only been married for a short while, yet he knows all my preferences so clearly. On our wedding day, all the food prepared was my favorite. In this lifetime, the course of events has taken a different turn from the previous one. For instance, Xiao Chengxing's grand and public return to the bride's home with a concubine this time was naturally intended to support Pei Shiwei. In my previous life, Xiao Chengxing did not accompany me back to my family home. Firstly, as the crown princess returning home, the crown prince, being the heir apparent, was not required to accompany me. Secondly, Xiao Chengxing was tied up with important matters at the time and simply had no time to accompany me back. This time, I specifically helped him resolve this matter in advance, which gave him the opportunity to support Pei Shiwei. I hope this sentimental crown prince will appreciate my kindness. Miss, a letter from the young master has arrived. As soon as she returned to the mansion, Chuanxi came forward, smiling as she handed over Meng Yuanji's letter with both hands, before greeting Shu Huisheng. "Greetings, master." I took the letter, glanced at Shu Huisheng without showing any emotion, and spoke in a gentle yet slightly reproachful tone, tapping Chuanxi's forehead lightly with my finger. "How many times have I told you to change the way you address me, to avoid giving others a reason to gossip? Chuanxi has been with me since childhood. And even when I was with the Meng family in Yunzhong, she was the one who took care of me closely." As soon as I said this, she understood my attitude. She immediately lowered her head in agreement and respectfully bowed. "Young master, madam, this servant will take her leave first." I held the envelope between my fingers, not yet opening it. Shu Huisheng stood to the side, holding the pastries, and said in a natural tone, "My lady, should the imperial edict be enshrined in the ancestral hall or placed in the study?" I glanced at the bright yellow silk cloth and said indifferently, "It's just the title of a princess. This piece of cloth can simply be put in any box." Shu Huisheng indeed casually picked up a wooden box, placed the imperial edict inside, and set it on the antique shelf nearby. I sat down to open the letter, while Shu Huisheng found a low stool and placed it beside me before taking a seat. I was fully absorbed in reading the letter when I suddenly felt a tight grip around my ankle. "What are you doing?" I glared down at him. Shu Huisheng smiled with an innocent expression. I'm massaging your feet. My lady, you've had a long and tiring journey, so you should rest a bit. He actually took off my boots for me, gently massaging my feet. I felt a bit uncomfortable and tried to pull my foot back, but I couldn't break free from his large hand. Wife, hurry and read your cousin's letter, he said with an innocent, harmless smile. Let me help you relax. He paused, then slowly added, you and your cousin are so close, meeting in the morning and sending a letter in the afternoon. I immediately caught the subtle hint of jealousy in his words and couldn't help but laugh and cry at the same time. Giving him a light kick, see for yourself. I handed him the letter, my tone calm. It's a letter from the Meng family, urging him to return urgently on urgent business. Cousin is leaving Shengjing this afternoon, and he might have already passed through the city gates by now. Shu Huisheng took the letter without a word, while I gazed out the window, my thoughts gradually sinking. The last time I saw my cousin was atop the city walls of Shengjing. His body was whipped by the enemy and hung high for public display. I cannot see clearly that blooded and mangled face. He was the most outstanding young master among the scions of noble families. Skilled in both civil and martial arts, with a noble and upright character, yet he traveled 1,000 miles for me, leading his troops to defend the gates of Shengjing city to the death. Yet, to protect the people in the city, I shook hands and made peace with the one who caused his death. I clenched my fists, my nails digging deep into my palms, yet I felt nothing. Suddenly, a pair of warm, large hands covered mine, gently prying my fingers open one by one. Shu Huisheng's voice was hoarse yet resolute. Don't cry, I'll take you to see Meng Yuanji. Only after Shu Huisheng spoke did I realize my face was cold and wet. So, I had been crying, beyond the long pavilion, beside the ancient road, outside the city. The withered grass is half green and half yellow, as the autumn wind sweeps through the sand and dust. Cousin, beware of the Shu family of Qingchuan. They have long since turned traitor and colluded with the enemy. Meng Yuanji's expression turned stern, his gaze shifting toward Shu Huisheng not far away, his brow slightly furrowed. Zhao Hua, I'm finding it harder and harder to understand you, since it is known that the Shu family would collude with the enemy and betray the country. Why give up being the crown princess to marry Shu Huisheng? Why then did you have me send that person to the Eastern Palace? Meng Yuanji mounted his horse, his gaze deep and steady as he looked at me. If one day you no longer wish to stay in Shengjing, I will take you back to Yunzhong, Shu Huisheng shouted loudly. Cousin, hold on a moment. Meng Yuanji's whip-cracking motion came to a halt. Shu Huisheng presented a scroll. Meng Yuanji slowly unrolled it, and with just a brief glance, his face could not conceal his shock. This is a detailed map of the Shu family of Qingchuan. Please burn it after reading. Cousin, Shu Huisheng said gravely. Meng Yuanji carefully folded the scroll, then bowed deeply to Shu Huisheng from atop his horse, his gratitude evident in every gesture. The sound of hoofbeats gradually faded into the distance, and the dust settled. Yet, in Shengjing, a storm was brewing. It was said that the emperor's health was failing. In the spring imperial examination, Shu Huisheng achieved the top score, earning the triple first honors. Shortly after marrying Pei Shiwei, Xiao Chengsheng took a concubine named Yun. This young lady grew up with Xiao Chengsheng. Although of humble status, she was his first love. She was the daughter of Xiao Chengsheng's wet nurse. In his previous life, Xiao Chengcheng could not bear to keep her confined within the palace walls, so he sent her out of the palace early and arranged a marriage for her. But who would have thought that the man was not a good match? And the White Moonlight girl was tormented and died of illness at a young age. From then on, Pei Shiwei, who bore some resemblance to that White Moonlight girl, became Xiao Chengcheng's beloved, even Xiao Chengcheng's wet nurse, because of Pei Shiwei's face that resembled her own deceased daughter, repeatedly helped Pei Shiwei frame me. In this life, I had Meng Yuanji find a way to send this young lady into the Eastern Palace. I refused to believe that Xiao Chengsheng would remain unmoved. Sure enough, Pei Shiwei soon fell out of favor. However, her methods were ruthless. She even dared to use the fetus in her womb to frame the beloved young lady. But the White Moonlight had her own mother to protect her, and she was no easy target either. Pei Shui found an excuse to have the crown prince's wet nurse secretly dealt with. From then on, the Eastern Palace was in chaos every day. Xiao Chengxing was repeatedly impeached by the censor-in-chief for his private conduct, and his household was in turmoil. The emperor grew increasingly displeased with the crown prince, repeatedly promoting several of the crown prince's younger brothers. This matter caused a great stir, with even the common folk discussing it. At this time, everyone in Shengjing praised my good judgment. Upon returning from the Qianglin banquet, Xu Huixing looked worried. The emperor may not live for more than a few months, he whispered, his tone inexplicably certain. I tied the note to the carrier pigeon's leg, took a deep breath, and released it into the sky. Xu Huixing was still reeking of alcohol. I turned around and happened to meet his bleary eyes. I took a few steps to the desk, leaned over, lifted the chin of this newly crowned top scholar with my index finger, and smiled faintly. Xu Huixing was dazzled by my smile, and coupled with being drunk, he looked dazed and bewildered. Then let's muddy the waters. What do you say, Prime Minister Xu? I almost gritted my teeth as I uttered the last two words. Xu Huixing did not panic. Instead, he flipped over the desk, pulled me into his arms, and whispered into my ear. Your Majesty had already guessed it, hadn't you? Indeed, Xu Huixing had never concealed his actions in front of me. He, like me, had been reborn. Back then, to break the deadlock, I carefully selected Xu Huixing as my marriage partner. I knew that Xu Huixing was the illegitimate son of Minister Xu, treated coldly by everyone in the family, and had always kept a low profile. If I could win him over before he made a name for himself in the imperial examinations, he would surely be even more loyal to me. Moreover, I knew that in my previous life, Xu Huixing had feelings for me. Otherwise, he would not have rushed into the sea of fire to die with me. I know he will be loyal to me, but in this life, I have greater ambitions, so I need a sharper blade. Just use it as needed, but I don't know when. I hope to hear this answer from his own mouth. I gently shook my head, steadied my mind, and must not be bewitched by this seductress. I smiled, placed my arms on his shoulders, wrapped them around his neck, and breathed softly. But I want you to never hide anything from me and to always follow my wishes. The treacherous Prime Minister's ears turned red in secret. As my lady commands, as expected. News soon spread that the emperor had fallen into a deep slumber, throwing the court into chaos. Xiao Chengxing hastily summoned masters from across the land, claiming that only devout prayers could restore the emperor's health. Seizing this opportunity, he took control of the families of a large number of imperial relatives and high-ranking civil and military officials. As the Princess of Changle, personally bestowed by the emperor, I also became one of the hostages. When I stepped into the Lizhang Palace, where the families were being held, I knew that the show was about to begin. The Lizhong Palace is the most remote palace in the entire complex. If anything were to happen in the front court or the central palace, it would be difficult to hear any commotion from here. To prevent anyone from escaping, the food delivered daily is coarse and barely enough to fill one's stomach. When it comes to matters of life and death, everyone endures what they must, as survival is the most important thing. Yet, what is served to me every day is either shark fin and bird's nest, or rare delicacies from the mountains and seas. The other imprisoned women frequently cast glances in my direction. By the fourth day, someone finally couldn't hold back and threw down a plate, pointing at me as she addressed the palace servant delivering the meals. We're all locked up by the crown prince, so why do we have to eat coarse food while she gets such fine meals? The palace servant delivering the meals replied indifferently, we are merely following orders, so please do not make things difficult for us servants. Your Highness. Princess Rui crossed her arms and snorted coldly. I would like to know whose orders you are following. To flatter a princess with no royal bloodline. The palace servants were unwilling to answer. They bowed respectfully and retreated, closing the palace doors behind them as they left. The food box that the palace servant had just placed beside my desk had an extremely thin piece of paper tucked underneath it. I discreetly glanced at the note out of the corner of my eye. It contained only a few brief words. Yun is already pregnant, act at any time. The laughter of the womenfolk buzzed like flies, and someone remarked with a sarcastic tone, don't forget, she was once the crown princess. Perhaps the crown prince still has lingering feelings for her. Laughter rose and fell. Yet not a single person genuinely stood by my side. After all, in their eyes, I was merely the wife of a sixth-rank compiler, but they forgot I was imprisoned not because I was Xu Huixing's wife, but because I was the Changla princess, personally bestowed the title by the emperor. I couldn't be bothered to pay attention to these provocations, simply resting my cheek on one hand with my eyes closed, yet my mind was already beginning to plan the next steps, in the crown prince's palace. My half-sister, the side consort Wei, had miscarried her child in a bid to win favor. The child in the side consort Yun's womb would now be the crown prince's only heir. On the 7th day, the night was deep and dark. The women huddled in a corner of the palace, trembling with fear. I dipped my index finger in saliva, gently poked a hole in the paper window, and peeked through the tiny opening. The guards at Lishang Palace tonight were not as strict as they had been in the previous days. Feeling reassured, I returned to my original spot, sat down, wrapped my robe tightly around me, and closed my eyes to rest. In the dead of night, a sudden, chaotic flurry of footsteps shattered the silence, startling me awake without warning. 6 or 7 torches illuminated the open ground in front of Lishang Palace. The palace doors swung wide open. Many of the women in the inner quarters screamed in terror, as if the blade hanging over their heads had finally fallen. I looked up. Pei Shui burst in like a madwoman, her expression filled with frenzy and despair. She scanned the hall, her eyes finally locking onto me. She rushed forward, grabbed my collar, and demanded sharply, "Where is the crown prince?" I calmly pried her hand away and replied coldly, "Consort Wei, isn't it a bit inappropriate for you to ask me, someone imprisoned here, such a question?" Pei Shui shouted angrily, "Pei Jiaohua, stop pretending. Xu Huixing is nothing but your lackey. If he hadn't been playing tricks, the crown prince would have ascended the throne long ago. You're jealous of me, jealous that the crown prince favors me, while you are only fit to be the wife of a sixth-rank compiler. That's right, you're just jealous," I sneered. "Pei Shui, are you still deceiving yourself at this point? If Xiao Chengcheng truly loved you, why didn't he take you with him when he fled?" I closed my eyes in deep thought, and in my mind, the secret reports I had received over the past few days and the movements outside the Lijiang Palace came to the surface. It can be easily inferred, Xiao Chengcheng's attempt to seize the palace has failed. On the day the city fell in the previous life, Xiao Chengcheng fled with Pei Shui, but having been married to him for over a decade, I know all too well his fickleness and selfishness, claiming to be deeply affectionate, yet breaking laws and committing crimes. Forcibly seizing a common woman who resembles his white moonlight, because Pei Shui bears a 50% resemblance to his white moonlight, he indulged her in wreaking havoc in the harem and taking lives. Even when the city fell and he fled with Pei Shui, he merely treated her as a gift ready to be offered up at any moment on the escape route. Yet Pei Shui remained stubbornly deluded, shouting, "You're jealous of me. The crown prince never loved you, you don't know, do you? It was the crown prince who proposed the marriage swap. You've used your status as the legitimate daughter to suppress me for over a decade, yet you still lost to me." She spun around, laughing hysterically, growing increasingly deranged. I watched coldly, determined not to waste any more words on her, yet she refused to let me go. "Seize her, with her here. I don't believe Xu Huixing won't show himself." The guards hesitated, but Pei Shui shouted sharply. And they all closed in on me in unison. Just as a pair of hands reached out toward me, the sound of a piercing arrow cut through the air. The guard who was about to touch me had his right hand pierced by a feathered arrow, pinning him to a pillar. "Who dares to try?" a sharp voice shouted. In the flickering light of the flames, a figure slowly entered through the hall door, casting a cold gaze over everyone. Xu Huixing, with a stern expression and cold eyes, held a long bow as he slowly walked toward me. The crown prince conspired with several princes to rebel, plotting to poison the dragon body. They have been executed on the spot. Now, the remaining traitors are being apprehended. Consort Wei, surrender. As soon as the words fell, the imperial guards rushed in, swiftly surrounding Pei Shui and the few guards, leaving no room for escape. Xu Huixing's voice was cold, yet his movements were exceptionally gentle as he draped the cloak over me. Though Xu Huixing's voice was cold, his actions were very gentle as he fastened the cloak for me. My gaze swept toward Pei Shui. Her face was pale, and she was in a state of panic, as if she had lost her soul. With a single gesture from Xu Huixing, Pei Shui was seized. She struggled desperately and screamed, losing one of her shoes in the process, yet she was still forcibly dragged away by the Imperial Guards. Immediately after, more Imperial Guards poured in, requesting the detained women to step back and leave. Having witnessed Pei Shui's treatment just moments before, they all fell silent, too frightened to move from where they stood. There was not a trace of tenderness or pity for the fairer sex on Xu Huixing's face. I swept my sharp gaze over the crowd and said calmly, "The internal strife has been quelled. You may return home." Princess Ruyi gritted her teeth and whispered, "Who knows if you have ulterior motives?" I gave a faint, cold smile and said in an icy tone, "Then you can also try going straight to the imperial prison with Pei Shui. How does that sound?" Her face instantly turned deathly pale, and she hurriedly turned and rushed away. "I want to go home. I don't want to be locked up with that lunatic." My gaze lingered on the other womenfolk, who dared not utter another word. Their steps hurried as they retreated with the Imperial Guards. Before the vast Lizhang Palace, only Xu Huixing and I remained. Xu Huixing looked at me with deep affection, yet my gaze leaped over the overlapping palace walls, settling in the direction of the Golden Luan Hall. The prince's farcical attempt to force his way into the palace was swiftly suppressed by us. The princes who entered the palace under the pretense of cleansing the court and seeking to seize an opportunity did not disappoint the chaos that Xu Huixing and I had deliberately stirred up. There are always those who love to fish in troubled waters, aren't there? However, without exception, they met their fate. Some died, some were maimed, and some went mad. As for whether it's truly disabled or truly insane, it's meaningless. The old ministers who got involved in this matter were also demoted or executed as appropriate. My cold-hearted and ungrateful Prime Minister father was demoted to a low-ranking official, which infuriated him so much that he suffered a stroke and became bedridden. For a time, the capital was filled with fear and suspicion. This forced abdication was also recorded in historical texts as the Wuhan incident. The emperor was so enraged that he vomited blood and ultimately did not survive beyond half a month. The emperor's passing was a national mourning, with the entire country donning white garments and ceasing all music and banquets. The common people were only concerned about when they could resume weddings, funerals, and other ceremonies. The civil and military officials were more concerned about the succession to the throne, as is now widely known. Almost all of the late emperor's sons perished in the Wuhan incident. None of these princes left behind any heirs. Should a young child be selected from the imperial clan to be supported and placed on the throne, the civil and military officials were embroiled in a heated debate at court. The Empress Dowager presided over the court from behind a screen. She was not a decisive person by nature, and the successive deaths of her son and husband had left her utterly grief-stricken. Thus, after 3 days of fierce verbal battles among the ministers, no successor to the throne had been decided. Xu Huixing was promoted 3 ranks in a row for his meritorious service in rescuing the emperor, which just qualified him to attend court in the Golden Luan Hall. When those people grew tired of arguing, he stepped forward with his ceremonial tablet and announced that he had a matter to present. A group of seasoned officials looked at this newly appointed top scholar, who had risen through the ranks as if soaring through the clouds. He stood tall and straight, yet his expression was weary, as if he had not slept a wink the previous night. The Empress Dowager harbored resentment over the Wuhan incident, in which Xu Huixing had played a significant role, but she still suppressed her impatience and allowed him to speak. "I am overwhelmed with grief, thinking of the late emperor's appreciation and favor, which has led me to think of it by day and dream of it by night. Last night, I dreamed of the Qianglin banquet, where the late emperor bestowed upon me a golden light with dragon patterns. Following that light, I unexpectedly arrived at the Eastern Palace, and then the light vanished. I rarely dream. So I wondered if this might be a hint from the late emperor that the bloodline of the crown prince still remains in the Eastern Palace, though the dream was absurd." Xu Huisheng spoke with such earnestness that it was hard to dismiss. Better to believe it exists than to believe it does not. The Empress Dowager immediately dispatched imperial physicians to the Eastern Palace, summoning all the women associated with the Crown Prince for a pulse diagnosis. Not even sparing Pei Shui, who was imprisoned in the Celestial Prison. That day, the court session was extended by an hour, yet no one dared to complain. Everyone was waiting to see Xu Huisheng make a fool of himself. An hour later, a eunuch hurried in to report, moving so quickly that he nearly tripped over the threshold. Concubine Yun is with child. The Empress Dowager asked in disbelief, "Does the Crown Prince truly have an heir?" Concubine Yun is already 3 months pregnant, but she is in good health and hasn't experienced any symptoms, so she hadn't noticed until now. The Empress Dowager wept with joy. The court officials also breathed a sigh of relief, leaving the court with cheerful expressions. I was thrilled too, because Concubine Yun is one of my people. If it is said that Pei Shui bears a 50% resemblance to Xiao Chengxing's White Moonlight, then Lu Yunyun is even more like a twin sister to that White Moonlight. Yet they are not related. The White Moonlight moved away with her husband's family and has long since died in a foreign land. Xiao Chengcheng prides himself on being deeply affectionate, ordering his subordinates to search everywhere for women who resemble his beloved. But Lu Yunyun did not enter the Eastern Palace willingly. She was already married, living in harmony with her husband, treating each other with respect and courtesy. Xiao Chengcheng's men forcibly abducted her and imprisoned her in the Crown Prince's private villa outside the palace. To force her into submission, Xiao Chengxing threatened her family. Lu Yunyun pretended to comply, but her longing for her family was too strong. Taking advantage of Xiao Chengxing's lowered guard, she escaped. Only after escaping did she learn that Xiao Chengxing had killed her husband and relatives to eliminate any future threats. When she returned to the home she had longed for, all she found were corpses scattered throughout the courtyard. Later, Xiao Chengcheng sent his men to capture her back, but I saved her. I asked her if she was willing to seek revenge. Without a word, she knelt before me and kowtowed 3 times. After I had someone teach her for a while, she entered the palace as the Crown Prince's White Moonlight. Upon hearing that she had refused to submit to her husband's family and had traveled all the way back from a foreign land, begging along the way, just to see him, Xiao Chengxing was deeply moved and immediately took her as his concubine. This identity had to be kept a secret from everyone. And the Crown Prince's wet nurse had to be eliminated, even after many years apart, who wouldn't recognize their own daughter. I never expected Lu Yunyun to be so clever, using someone else's hand to kill, leveraging Pei Shui to eliminate the Crown Prince's wet nurse. She is my most crucial move. Her child is the last bloodline of the royal family, and will become my foundation for ruling the world. I promised her that as long as she gave birth to this child, whether it was a boy or a girl, I would grant her freedom. After the news of Consort Yun's pregnancy spread, Shengjing once again returned to peace. However, Xu Huisheng did not stop having those mysterious and elusive prophetic dreams. He repeatedly shared the revelations from his dreams during the morning court sessions. He dreamed of a rebellion in the northwest, so he ordered troops to be stationed there in advance. Sure enough, before long, a small-scale rebellion broke out in the northwest and was suppressed in advance. That rebellion originated from the Shu family of Qingchuan. Xu Huisheng did not show any leniency. Although the rebellion was small, it involved significant implications. Minister Xu was so furious that he severed ties with him. It is said that Jiangnan may face drought this year, requiring extensive construction of canals and digging of wells. The officials believe that Jiangnan, being a land of fish and rice, need not worry. Moreover, constructing canals and digging wells would incur enormous costs, which the government cannot afford. I wrote a letter to the Meng family in Yunzhong, and Meng Yuanji took the lead. With prominent families donating funds to build canals, dig wells, and divert water. Sure enough, after the onset of summer, rainfall in the Jiangnan region decreased, and the previously dug ditches and wells came into use. The officials, initially skeptical, eventually treated his dreams as imperial decrees to be carried out immediately whenever he mentioned them. It was not until the day when consort Yun gave birth to a prince that Xu Huixing had another dream. Last night, I dreamed that the emperor's star was dim, surrounded by malevolent forces. Only a person of great fortune, guarding the court and instructing the prince, can ensure the eternal peace of the imperial lineage. The Empress Dowager urgently inquired, Minister Xu, who is the chosen one, did the dream offer any guidance? Which great scholar is it? Xu Huixing remained silent, lowering his eyes as if hesitating about something. The Empress Dowager urged him repeatedly, and the ministers also tried to persuade him, but he still said nothing. The hall fell into an unbearable silence. The Empress Dowager's expression darkened as she slowly said, "If you continue to remain silent, I will hold your entire family accountable. I have heard that Lord Xu and Princess Chang'e share a deep bond. Surely you would not wish to see her imprisoned in the imperial jail." The hall fell into a deep silence. Only then did Xu Huixing look up, as if compelled by desperation, and utter, guided by the stars, "It points directly to the Princess Chang'e's residence." The court was thrown into an uproar. Someone lowered their voice and said, "No wonder Minister Xu is in a difficult position. No matter who says it, it sounds like boasting." Soon, an old minister stepped forward to report. "Not to mention that Minister Xu's dreams always come true. Princess Chang'e once saved the late emperor. Isn't she truly a person of destiny?" Another person chimed in. When Princess Chang'e was born, there were auspicious signs. At that time, a wandering Taoist priest said she would one day stand above all but one. When she married Minister Xu, everyone thought it was a joke. But now, hasn't it come true? Someone else remarked, "This year's drought is severe. If it weren't for Princess Chang'e writing to the Meng family in Yunzhong, the Jiangnan region might have faced a major disaster." The Meng family in Yunzhong has a tradition of passing down poetry and literature through generations. Princess Chang'e was taught by the Meng family from a young age and is exceptionally talented. She should be well equipped to instruct the young prince. As soon as Xu Huixing began speaking, everyone started chiming in with their own opinions. Xu Huixing retreated back to his original position in the line, lowered his head, and smiled faintly. As long as the first few dreams come true, no one will doubt that the dream he spoke of is false. 2 years later, Lu Yunyun faked her death and disappeared. The Empress Dowager, remembering Pei Shiwei who had gone mad in the imperial prison, ordered her execution. On the eve of Pei Shiwei's execution, I went to the imperial prison to see her. She was rarely lucid, and the moment she saw me, she seemed to go mad again, lunging toward me, only to crash into the wooden bars of the cell. Her hands reached outside the bars, flailing desperately. "Pei Jiaohua, if you want the position of crown princess, you can have it. If you don't want it, no one else is allowed to touch it. Twice, I've fallen into your hands." She laughed maniacally, her eyes suddenly gleaming with madness as she exclaimed, "But how do you know that in the third life, I won't be the first to awaken my memories?" Pei Shiwei gestured with a delicate orchid-like hand, mimicking the movements of a flower-dan actress in an opera. "By then, the crown prince will surely be captivated by me." "Ha ha ha." I stood at a moderate distance, mocking, "You will still lose. Relying on a man's favor as a lifelong support is the most foolish way to live." Pei Shiwei shouted, "You're the one who's laughable. What does it matter if you're the future head of the Yunzhong Meng family? You're still just a dog on a leash." Suddenly thinking of something, she covered her mouth and chuckled lightly. "Oh, and that mad dog Xu Huixing. To use him, you, the mother of a nation, actually stooped to marry such a lowly person." She was losing clarity again, beginning to confuse the past life with the present. But there was one thing she said that was right. What's the difference between men and dogs? Xiao Chengxing is a habitual womanizer, just like a dog that can't stop eating shit. But if you train them well, they will remain loyal to you forever. I brushed my sleeves and left the prison, never looking back at that pitiful woman. 3 years later, the Empress Dowager passed away from illness. 5 years later, I no longer governed from behind a curtain but stood directly in the imperial court. 7 years later, in the imperial study, Xu Huixing was teaching the young emperor poetry and literature. It's just that the child's heart isn't in it. As soon as class starts, he wants to run away. Xu Huisheng often has to play a game of cat and mouse with him for half an hour before he can settle down. The memorials on the desk remain unread. Listening to the young voices reciting their lessons, for the first time, my mind was not on state affairs. I pulled out a map of the Great Jew, a vermilion brush hovering over it, unmoving for a long time. During my years as regent, I quelled rebellions, subdued neighboring states, and ensured they paid tribute annually as vassals. I reduced forced labor, severely punished corrupt officials. And most importantly, I established female households, promoted women's education, enabling women to understand principles and see the vastness of the world. After a moment of daze, I used the vermilion brush to circle the location of Shengjing, this dragon throne. It's my turn to sit on it. After hearing the first story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Next, there is another similar story. Let's continue to see. While gathering herbs in the mountains, I encountered a severely injured man. He promised me that if I saved him, he would take me as his concubine. Is being a concubine some kind of blessing? The second sister from next door became the prefect's concubine, and within 2 months, she was beaten to death by the principal wife and thrown into a mass grave. Her own family didn't even dare to go collect her body. I shook my head. I won't be a concubine. If you want to repay me, give me 100 taels. Before I could finish, the man interrupted. To be my official wife, your status as a country girl isn't enough. Being a concubine in my Yongchang Marquis manor would be an immense fortune for you. Perhaps he didn't hear me, so I patiently repeated, just give me 100 taels of silver as your repayment. No, I am the heir of a noble house. How could I be ungrateful? You saved me. I must repay you by taking you as my concubine, to shelter you from wind and rain. He doesn't understand human language. I took a deep breath, picked up the large stone on the ground, and hurled it at the man as he looked on in panic. The man slumped to the ground with his head tilted, completely lifeless. Concubine, concubine, concubine. Go be a concubine yourself in your next life. From the man's body, she retrieved a high-quality jade pendant, warm to the touch, which looked like it was worth quite a bit of silver. So he does have money. Indeed, the richer people are. The stingier they become, still want to take a concubine for free. Go to hell. I carefully put away the jade pendant and sighed at the man on the ground. Since I've started doing a good deed, I might as well finish it. I'll give you a proper burial. What can I say? I'm just too soft-hearted. You killed him. A man in splendid attire, yet disheveled and injured, stumbled out of the woods, furious. How dare you, insolent commoner? You dare to assassinate the heir of the Yongchang Marquis estate. I frowned. Did you see it? The man was taken aback. See what? If you didn't see it, why are you shouting nonsense? With all these injuries on him, do you think a delicate woman like me could have done it? The son of the Marquis of Yongchang had multiple knife wounds and was also hit by an arrow. He was bleeding profusely and didn't receive timely treatment, so he's bound to die sooner or later. I just did a small favor, ending his suffering a bit earlier. The man before me thought what I said made sense and reined in his anger. To be honest with you, miss, I am the Prince of Zhennan. If you lend a hand to save me, I will surely reward you handsomely. Ha, another nobleman. The title Little Prince of the South sounds more prestigious and valuable than the identity of the heir to the Marquis of Yongchang. 100 taels of silver is too little. It doesn't match the noble status of the Little Prince of the South. Start by asking for 1,000 taels of silver. If that doesn't work, you can lower the price a bit. With money, I wouldn't have to risk going up the mountain to gather herbs, and I could even open a pharmacy. I have to ask first, what's the reward? The Prince of Southern Town, the current emperor, has no sons. This time, I have been summoned to the capital. Do you know what that means? I shook my head. It's none of my business. I only care about my silver. The Prince of Southern Town choked back his words. Utterly foolish. Never mind. I'll teach you slowly in the future. If you save me, I can offer you the position of a concubine. His voice was arrogant, carrying an air of looking down upon the world. When I inherit the throne, you will become a consort in the palace, enjoying endless wealth and honor, as well as supreme power. His injuries made him unable to hold on. and he slid to the ground, leaning against a large tree. His face was pale, but his eyes remained haughty. I leaned in close to him and whispered, "Keep your voice down. Do you want to attract wild beasts? I have no desire to be your concubine." He exclaimed, "You want to be the principal consort? No. Your status is too low. Even being a secondary consort is a favor to you. Under normal circumstances, someone of your standing wouldn't even be qualified to enter the prince's mansion as a lowly concubine." His tone was mocking, his gaze disdainful, as if granting me the title of secondary consort was an immense favor I had stumbled upon. "Keep your voice down. If you attract wild beasts, neither of us will be able to escape." Even with my usually calm temper, I couldn't help but feel a bit angry at this moment. The smell of blood was already strong, and now with all the loud noise, it was as if we were deliberately trying to guide the wolves, tigers, and leopards in the mountains straight to us. Immediately, I stuffed a handful of grass into his mouth. "You don't have to marry me, just give me 1,000 taels of silver as payment." "Is that too much? 800 taels will do. Or 700. Nod or shake your head." The southern prince of the town stared at me fixedly, not moving. I frowned. 500 taels, no less. "If you don't agree, you can stay here." I'll move the grass away. "Do you promise to speak softly?" Only after seeing him nod did I remove the weeds. Countless women would do anything to enter my Zhennan prince's mansion. Yet you dare to refuse. "If you escort me back to the mansion safely, I'll grant you a proper burial." The young Zhennan prince, likely having never suffered such humiliation before, began to speak recklessly without considering his own situation. The words carried too much killing intent. If he hadn't been severely injured and unable to move, I would probably be dead by now. Another arrogant fool who doesn't understand human speech. Regretfully, I picked up the blood-stained stone. "Stop. How dare you attempt to assassinate the future son of heaven? I, the prince, will exterminate your entire clan and sell you to the filthiest brothel, where you'll be trampled by thousands and ridden by tens of thousands." The voice, filled with shock and fury, abruptly cut off. The man who called himself the prince of the southern town rolled his eyes and collapsed to the ground, a large hole in his head from which blood continued to gush. He checked his nose. There was no breath. Good, a single strike to kill without suffering. Otherwise I would feel uneasy inside. Who made me such a soft-hearted person? This man who called himself the southern king of the town had quite a few valuable things on him. Jade pendants, bracelets, jade thumb rings. Any one of them could be worth several hundred taels. It's not good to place too much importance on silver. In the end, it will all come to me anyway. The smell of blood easily attracts wild beasts, so I covered the bloodstains on the ground with soil and cleaned up the area. The two men who had shared both joy and sorrow were also dragged to an open area with a water source, ready to be burned and then properly buried. The deep mountains are full of wolves, tigers, and leopards. Even if they were buried in a pit, they would likely be dug up and eaten by wild beasts. Just thinking about that scene is too pitiful. It's better to burn them and let them rest in peace. As a weak woman, I worked all afternoon without any help. Sweat soaked through my clothes, and the firewood was barely enough. My stomach is growling with hunger, so I take out the dry rations I always carry with me, ready to have a quick bite. "Miss, please, save me." Another man, severely injured, appears. Did I stumble into a den of men today? The man was covered in filth, his face pale and ghastly, with dried bloodstains caked into dark brown patches all over his body. He struggled to crawl out from behind the tree, mustering all his strength to speak in one breath. "I am Jiang Ji, son of the general of the Dragon Martial Guard. If you are willing to save me, I will offer you 1,000 taels of gold, make you my lawful wife, and swear to treat you well for the rest of my life. If I break this vow, may I be struck by lightning." That's an interesting statement. If I become your lawful wife, what will happen to your original wife? The debt of a life saved is paramount. My wife is a most reasonable person and would certainly be willing to yield her position as the principal wife to you, gladly demoting herself to a concubine. I was only testing to see if he had a wife, but it turns out he really does. Your wife must come from a noble family like you. Is she truly willing? A woman, once married, regards her husband as her heaven, she has no choice but to comply, whose daughter has had the misfortune of 8 lifetimes to marry you. I took a deep breath and pointed at the firewood pile. Do you recognize them? Jiangxi glanced quickly and wailed, I do. They are the heir of Yongchang Marquis and the young prince of Zhennan. We came into the mountains together for hunting. But we got separated after encountering assassins. I never expected that they would fall victim to the assassins. When I return to the capital and report this to His Majesty, I will mention that you, out of kindness, collected their bodies. The Yongchang Marquis's household and the Prince of Zhennan's household will surely thank you, and His Majesty will also reward you. I fell silent. During my dragging, the 2 men's hair crowns had come loose. Their clothes were torn beyond recognition of style and color, and they were covered in firewood. It was nearly dark, and the light was dim. Even if you looked closely, without moving the firewood aside, you wouldn't be able to see their faces, yet he could recognize them with just a glance. Please, miss, save me. Once I inherit the general's estate, everyone in the household will honor you as the mistress, and you will manage the household affairs. The rest of his words were silenced by a stone I threw. This man was quite tenacious. Even after being hit by my stone, he didn't die immediately and instead questioned, why, he gave me silver and made me his principal wife, so why did I still want to kill him? Do you think losing 1,000 taels of gold doesn't hurt me? My heart aches as if it's been pierced by a huge hole, but compared to this heartache, I'm more afraid of having the money but not the life to spend it. This person clearly saw me kill the lord of the southern town and only came out when he couldn't hold on any longer. He can bend and stretch. Once he's saved, crushing an ant like me would be easy. Speaking of which, doesn't the general of the Dragon Guard only have daughters? When did he get a son? He must be a fraud. Thinking of this, I swiftly threw another stone at him. The man had no valuable accessories on him, but he did have 2 silver ingots, so poor. And he still calls himself the son of a general, not even bringing more when going out, but at least it could somewhat soothe my agitated mood. Cash is better than accessories. No marks needed, can be used directly without going to the black market. For now, the accessories can only be kept and admired in secret. Drag his body onto the woodpile as well, and with the 3 brothers neatly arranged, a great fire burned everything to ashes. It burned until dawn the next day before the last flicker of flame finally went out. I've been keeping watch here all night, afraid that sparks might fly around, so I can douse them with water in time. The nearby villagers rely on the mountain for their livelihood. We can't let it be ruined. Since you 3 know each other, you'll have company on the road to the underworld. Don't worry, I'll find you a good feng shui spot to be buried. In your next life, you can be reborn as livestock after all. You can't understand human speech anyway. I dug a hole next to the water source, threw the bones that weren't completely burned into the pit, scooped in a few handfuls of ash, covered it tightly with soil, and then placed a few rocks on top to secure it. That way, the beast won't be able to dig it out. This place is beautiful and peaceful. Rest well here. Meeting me was a stroke of luck for these 3. Others wouldn't go to the trouble of cleaning up the aftermath, after all this hard work. I was both tired and sleepy, heading towards the temporary hut in the mountains, planning to rest before going to gather herbs. Halfway there, a hand reached out from the grass and grabbed my ankle, startling me so much that I jumped. The hand was slender, fair, and covered in wounds, yet it was quite strong. Pushing aside the grass, sure enough, it was a woman, dressed in narrow sleeves, with a high ponytail. The outfit is neat and sharp, looking comfortable and elegant. How strange, today. Not only did I stir up a nest of men, but also a nest of wounded. I reached out to check for breath. There was still life. Gently patting her face. Miss, wake up. The woman opened her eyes, her breath weak. Miss, save me. She pulled a gold bracelet and a gold hairpin from inside her collar, handed them to me, and then fainted. They were heavy, all pure gold, and without any markings. The style is also very ordinary. Well, who made me soft-hearted? I had no choice but to bring the woman back to the mountain cabin, clean her wounds, and apply the herbs I had gathered. I also brewed a fever-reducing decoction for her and forced her to drink it. I've done all I can. The rest is up to fate. Fortunately, by the next morning, her fever had subsided, and she regained consciousness. I will definitely repay you for your great kindness. Miss, I waved my hands repeatedly and took out the bracelet and gold hairpin she had given me. You've already given payment, there's no need for further repayment. These nobles aren't very bright in the head, who knows if her gratitude might be terrifying. I am the only legitimate daughter of the current emperor, Princess Yuanzhao. You are my benefactor, and naturally, you will be richly rewarded. When I return, I will personally petition my father to grant you the title of. She's not going to make me a concubine, is she? Even though he's the most honorable emperor, I don't want to be his consort, nor do I want to go to the palace. The concubines inside aren't allowed to leave. It's no different from being imprisoned. I can't defy a noble, so I'll just have to take advantage of her illness to end her life. No need, County Princess, become my sworn sister, and I shall grant you power and wealth. I immediately withdrew my gaze from searching for a handy tool. Really, the princess said solemnly, I am not the kind of person who forgets kindness and betrays loyalty. If you have any other requests, feel free to mention them. I beamed with joy. No need, no need. This is perfect. I thank your highness for your generous favor. Kindness is always rewarded, and here it comes. By the way, what were you about to say earlier? The princess struggled to get up. I quickly went over to help the princess sit up, thoughtfully placing a pillow behind her back. What I meant was, you've just woken up and shouldn't overexert yourself. If there's anything you need, just give the order. Even if you want me to hunt a tiger to nourish your health, I'll go and do it right away. In the days that followed, I served the princess diligently and conscientiously, striving to meet her every need. Come to think of it, don't these noble ladies always travel with a whole entourage of maids and servants? So why is it that none of the ones I've encountered have a single guard by their side? The princess recovered from her injuries, and her guard then appeared. Could it be that this guy arrived long ago and has been hiding in the shadows, keeping an eye on me? That's just being suspicious of others, isn't it? I'm soft-hearted and kind, how could I possibly do anything bad? The princess asked me to return to the capital with her, but I need to dry the medicinal herbs I worked so hard to gather first. Before leaving, the princess gave me a token and told me not to wander off, to wait for her to send someone to pick me up, but instead, I first encountered the people sent by my father, who invited me back to the mansion without any explanation. Oh, old man, tired of living the good life and decided to bring me back to stir up trouble. My opening words made the teary-eyed general of the Dragon Guard, who had hoped for a heartwarming father-daughter reunion, grimace in frustration. Don't you miss your father at all? Wasn't it you who sent me away and then ignored me for so many years? A flicker of guilt crossed my father's face. Master, Xia has been missing for so many days. Something must have happened to him. Send more people to search for him. Even if you have to turn the capital upside down to find him. Uncle, my brother is missing, and my sister-in-law is so anxious that she's having complications with her pregnancy. My mother came in with her niece, Jiang Yang, both of them weeping and wailing. Who is Xia? I was curious and puzzled. What did his disappearance have to do with my father? Xia is of course the son of me and the master. My mother frowned deeply. I said it was strange that Xia got into trouble out of nowhere. It must be because you brought bad luck. I won't take the blame for this. If you're delusional, go see a doctor, or hire a shaman to perform a ritual. Barking like a dog won't help. I sincerely asked my father, when did you get another son? Didn't my mother only give birth to me? Outrageous. Matters of your elders are not for you to question. Did I ask you, master? Look at her, she doesn't have the slightest respect for me as her mother. My father guiltily looked up at the sky and down at the ground, ignoring my mother's complaints. The year before last, Jiang Yang sternly rebuked, cousin. How can you speak so harshly to your own father and mother? As children, we should obey our parents at home. Even if you learned no manners at all on the estate, you should still understand this principle. I lifted my eyelids and gave her a cold look. You, on the other hand, have learned manners. But do you not know that one should not interrupt when others are speaking? It seems your manners aren't that great either. I'll have my father arrange for 2 more nannies to teach you all over again. Aunt, I know I'm living under someone else's roof, and I'm always afraid of causing you trouble. I'm cautious and filial to you and uncle every day. Why does my cousin still dislike me so much? What have I done wrong? I clicked my tongue in amazement. Over the years, your skill at changing expressions has really improved. Did you study at the Pear Garden? After all, I am the daughter of a respectable family. My cousin comparing me to an actress is just bullying me for having no parents. Just like 10 years ago, as soon as Xiangyang started crying, my mother immediately went into overprotective mode. He Li, apologized to Yanga, you ill-mannered thing. I ignored her unreasonable demand and stretched lazily. I'm tired and need to rest. Is there a courtyard for me? My mother trembled with anger, her lips quivering. My father instructed the butler to show me the way. Behind me came my mother's helpless, furious voice. Aren't you going to do something? Sir, are you just going to let her run wild? My father has really come up in the world. 10 years ago, he was just a minor general of the 3rd rank, and our home wasn't this big. After becoming a 2nd-rank general of the Dragon Guard, he has managed to line his pockets quite a bit over the years. Hearing my muttering, the butler wiped the cold sweat from his forehead and quickly said, Miss. All of this was properly acquired. The general was rewarded by the emperor for his meritorious service in protecting the imperial carriage. Your courtyard was personally overseen by the general when the servants were arranging it, even when the madam insisted on letting the cousin's daughter live there. The general didn't agree. My father has really put a lot of thought into it, arranging the courtyard perfectly in every detail. It's just that this style is what my mother likes. Where did my father get a son from? The eldest young master is Lady Jiangxi, the twin brother of the young lady. 3 years ago, Madam adopted the eldest young master from the Jiang family, registered him in the He family genealogy, and changed his name to He Ji. My father just agreed to this. The lady locked herself in her room for 3 days and 3 nights. Neither eating nor drinking. The master was afraid something might happen to her. I had heard before that Jiang Yang had a twin brother who had always been raised in the Jiang family. I never expected that the first time we met, I would end up helping my arch-rival, who had taken my father and seized my family's property. I really am a soft-hearted person after all. After a day's journey, I had the servants bring hot water for a comfortable bath and then fell into a deep sleep. At some unknown hour, faint noises came from outside, followed by a wisp of green smoke drifting in through the cracks in the window. Half a quarter of an hour later, a young man's trembling voice was heard. Do we really have to do this? After all, she is the general's legitimate daughter, another middle-aged woman whispered. What are you afraid of? Once her virtue is lost, she'll have no choice but to marry you, becoming the son-in-law of the general's estate. Soaring to great heights, it's something many people dream of. What if we're discovered? Don't be so timid. If you don't want the wealth and status that's right within your grasp, there are plenty of others who will. I'll do it. The door was gently pushed open, and a shadow crept stealthily in the dark to my bedside. Just as the bed curtain was lifted, I struck them precisely on the head with a porcelain pillow. The intruder let out a muffled groan. Their upper body collapsing onto the bed, lifeless. A little sedative like that couldn't knock me out. Holding the porcelain pillow, I stepped barefoot onto the floor and silently went to open the door. The person waiting outside muttered to himself, He Li, oh He Li, you had to come back and hinder my son's future. Don't blame me for being ruthless. Before she could react, she was also struck by my porcelain pillow and fell to the ground, just as stubborn as her son. She didn't die immediately and was still breathing. I am your mother. You, killing your own mother, is against all reason. How could you be my mother? You are the mother of Jiang Yang and Jiangxi, my dear aunt. You little bastard. You knew all along. I leaned close to her ear and whispered, You've been longing for Jia, haven't you? Now you can be reunited with him. You killed Ji. She unwillingly breathed her last breath. Master. The eldest young lady has killed the mistress. My mother's personal maid hurriedly brought my father over, wailing like a ghost and howling like a wolf. Master, you must seek justice for the mistress. My father suddenly turned his head, his gaze dark and fixed on the maid. Who are you saying is the murderer? Momo gasped for breath. Miss, Miss, it's so dark. How could you possibly see clearly who the murderer is? This is clearly a frame-up. Someone gag this treacherous servant who killed her master and take her away for strict custody. As soon as my father spoke, the housekeeper came in with 2 guards and dragged away the terrified Momo. Only my father and I were left. My father was silent for a long time. You're too impulsive, father. It's time to wake up after all these years. She is not my mother, and she will never tell you where my mother is. My mother was killed by them long ago. Shut up. Your mother is still alive. She must be alive. I'm waiting to bring her home. For 12 whole years. Have you refused to believe that my mother is no longer in this world? Or have you grown attached to the comfort offered by the thief? It must be the latter. After all, you even adopted her son. People's hearts are fickle, after all these years. My father has long lost his original intentions. The marriage between the Yongchang Marquis manor and the He family was arranged by the emperor. But the willful and capricious daughter of the Marquis disliked the rough, martial arts-loving general from the countryside and eloped with a handsome but poor scholar who had come to the capital to take the imperial examinations. To avoid the crime of deceiving the emperor, the Yongchang Marquis manor had their second daughter, who had been lost while visiting a temple with her family at the age of 1 and had only recently been found. Pretend to be the eldest daughter and marry into the He family. They publicly declared that the second daughter, having grown up in the countryside, was wild and untamed, had eloped with an outsider against her parents' wishes and the matchmaker's arrangements, tarnishing the Yongchang Marquis manor's reputation, and had been disowned by the Marquis's family. My mother and Jiangyang's mother were originally twins, identical in both appearance and height. My father had only seen the young lady of the Yongchang Marquis's household from afar at a few banquets, never exchanging a word, and thus was unaware that the Marquis's family had substituted someone else to marry him. The He family had a simple household, with only one elderly lady, who was also a kind person and did not make things difficult for the new bride. My father and my mother had contrasting personalities, one strong and one gentle, and over the course of their marriage, they gradually developed feelings for each other. The elders are kind, and the couple is deeply in love, so my mother lived a very happy life after marriage. The change occurred when I was 5 years old. The wife of the Marquis of Yongchang fell seriously ill and sent a message expressing her longing for my mother, asking her to return for a short stay. The current emperor values filial piety greatly, so even though my mother was unwilling to go to the Yongchang Marquis's estate, she had no choice but to go for the sake of my father's future. During our time at the Yongchang Marquis's estate, my mother stayed in the Marquise's courtyard to attend to her illness, while I lived in another courtyard, supervised by the Marquise's trusted nanny. No matter how much I cried or threw tantrums, they never took me to see my mother. Later, my mother finally came to take me home, bringing Jiang Yang along with her. Li, Yang's mother has passed away. Her father is an alcoholic and a gambler, and their family is in dire straits, living a very hard life. From now on, she will be a young lady of the general's mansion, just like you, even though her tone, demeanor, and every gesture are exactly like my mother's. But I know, she is not my mother. Returning to the general's mansion, I tearfully told my father that the one who came back is not my mother, that my mother is buried in the back garden of the Marquis of Yongchang's estate, under a sweet osmanthus tree. I saw it when I crawled through the dog hole to find my mother. My father secretly sneaked into the Marquis's mansion to search but found nothing. Father subtly probed and tested the mother at home, which instead proved that she was indeed my mother. After Jiang Yang entered the mansion, she competed with me in everything and compared herself to me at every turn. But I am not a weak person either. She couldn't get any advantage from me, but she had someone backing her up. By the time my father returned, I, still a small child, had been punished by kneeling in the ancestral hall for 5 days without food, barely clinging to life. My mother hypocritically threw herself on me, crying, "Ali, I didn't really mean to punish you, but your temper is too wild. You disrespect your parents and don't get along with your sisters. If I don't discipline you properly, you'll cause big trouble in the future." Little Jiang Yang also cried along, "Cousin, I was wrong. I won't eat the chicken leg anymore. And I'm not trying to take auntie away from you. You can hit or scold me however you like, and I won't fight back. Rumors began to spread in the capital that I was rebellious, unfilial, and bullied the weak. At that time, my father was busy with government affairs, and my grandmother was already advanced in age. Neither had the energy to manage me. So they decided to send me to the estate. On the day I left, I cried bitterly and begged my father not to send me away. Father, Ali is a good child. Ali didn't lie, she is not my mother. My father crouched down and patted my head. Ali, I believe you, but I need to keep her here to find your mother. You said you kept her to find clues about my mother, but all these years there hasn't been a single trace of her. You sent your own daughter away, brought back the child of your enemy to raise. And now you want to hand over the entire family to the son of your enemy. Father, do my mother and I no longer have any place in your heart? My father lowered his head in despair. Ali, I have wronged your mother, and I have wronged you even more. I will make it up to you. That's what you said yourself. Before dawn, Xianxia, accompanied by the old lady of the Yongcheng Marquis Manor, caused a scene at the general's mansion, demanding to take me away. Beast. Even tearing you apart with 5 horses and cutting you into 1,000 pieces cannot comfort my son's spirit in heaven or ease the hatred in my heart. Xianxia's mother was raised like a pearl in the hands of the old marquise, so her sudden death naturally left her utterly heartbroken. The old marquise, accustomed to a life of luxury, looked utterly haggard. My father refused to hand me over, not only out of favoritism but also because I was his only bloodline. Over the years, he had not been without effort, but neither his wife nor his concubine had been able to bear a child. When I first left the estate, I often hid by the small river outside the village and cried, with no one to care for me. It was there that I met a young woman. She asked me why I was crying, though I was young at the time. The sudden upheaval and the discussions of those around me made me vaguely aware of my situation. I said, Father will marry a stepmother, send me away. And there will be other children in the future. I'll be the unwanted little wretch. The young lady raised her spirited eyebrows. Little one, even if you turn into a beggar and starve to death, no one will care. If you want something, go fight for it yourself, understand? I looked up at her. How do I compete? Teach me. Sister, she took out a porcelain bottle. Give this to your father to drink. Will it poison my father? No, if your father were poisoned, who would earn wealth and honor for you? This medicine ensures that everything your father has from now on will belong only to you. At the end of the year, I hid in the convoy of New Year's goods sent by the estate manager to the mansion and returned home. My father, my mother, and Xianxia, dressed in new clothes, were enjoying the New Year's Eve dinner. The happy scene of the 3 of them as a family stung my eyes, and tears welled up instantly. I wiped away my tears and, without a single complaint, obediently said I missed my father. I made him the milk pudding I learned to prepare at the estate, playfully coaxing him to finish every last drop. Without causing my father any trouble, I willingly followed the convoy back to the estate. To this day, my father still remembers that dessert, praising me to everyone for braving the wind and snow at such a young age to show my filial piety to him. My mother's death was masterminded by the old marquise. How can she still be alive and kicking, while my mother's body remains missing to this day? I searched everywhere for a handy tool, thinking I could just smash her and be done with it. Her Highness the Princess has arrived. Oh, such a tense atmosphere. What's going on? Tell me all about it. The sudden arrival of the princess left everyone bewildered, and the noisy general's mansion fell silent. The elderly Marchioness, relying on her seniority, stepped forward. Your Highness, General Longwuwei is sheltering He Li, the murderer who killed his own mother. He shows no regard for the laws of the state. I beg your Highness to seek justice for my poor, wrongfully deceased daughter. The princess took her seat in the main chair. Is that so? What do you have to say for yourself? General He, my father, nonsense. Ali is a filial child. How could she possibly kill her mother as soon as she returned to the estate? The matter has been thoroughly investigated. It was the old servant by the madam's side who stole valuables to pay off her son's gambling debts. She killed the madam to cover it up after being discovered. The old marquise is advanced in age, and even if she is biased, She cannot condemn someone to death with just a word, everything must be based on evidence. You cannot convict someone with mere empty words. I am the evidence. Xianxia knelt before the princess, pointing at me. I beg your highness to uphold justice. It really was my cousin who killed my aunt. The princess did not respond to Xianxia but instead looked at me. What do you have to say? I bowed to the princess and said, Your Highness, Xianxia claims she is the evidence. Then let her state the time and place of the entire incident, my motive and tools for the crime. And who was present? Xianxia couldn't answer, stammering, You were jealous of how well my aunt treated me. Because of that, I would kill my own mother, Xianxia. Your excuse for slandering me is too clumsy. Xianxia wasn't even involved in the incident. She only heard the nanny's cry. The eldest young lady killed the mistress. In her panic, she didn't even dare to take a look and instead took advantage of the chaos to run to the Yongchang Marquis's residence to seek help. The princess took a leisurely sip of tea. I understand now, Miss Jiang's sister he have a personal grudge, don't they? Xianxia's face turned pale with panic. No. I didn't falsely accuse my cousin. It really was my cousin who killed my mother, my aunt. The old marchioness was so furious that her chest heaved uncontrollably. Is your highness also going to shield a murderer? I will file a complaint with the emperor and seek justice from his majesty. How dare you? How dare you offend her highness? Slap her face. The lady-in-waiting by the princess's side walked up to the old marchioness and raised her hand, ready to strike. Whether out of fear or pretense, the old marchioness rolled her eyes and fainted. The princess sent her own guards to escort Xianxia and the old marchioness back to the mansion, with a message for the Marquis of Yongchang. My sworn sister, County Princess Jiari, is the kindest and most compassionate person. Anyone who dares to oppose the county princess must first ask if I, Yuan Zhao, will allow it. Princess Yuan Zhao kept her promise and brought the imperial edict personally written by the emperor. I was granted the title of Lady Jiari. The matter concluded with the nanny in the household stealing valuables and, upon being discovered, murdering the mistress. As for the nanny who committed the crime, she has already been dealt with. The disappearance of the southern king in the town left the Yongchang Marquis mansion, which had aligned with him, without a backer. They dared not openly offend the general's mansion, which had the princess as its support, and could only swallow their grievances. Taking advantage of this opportunity, my father held a grand funeral for my mother. The bodies of Xianxia's mother and the man she had brought were completely burned in a fire, during the old marquise's birthday banquet. An invitation was surprisingly sent to the general's mansion. Afraid I wouldn't agree to go, they even invited the wives of several influential officials to persuade me. The gist was that my maternal grandfather's family intended to make peace, hoping that I, as a junior, would consider the bigger picture and not be ungrateful, lest it affect my future marriage prospects. On the day of the Hongmen banquet, I dressed up early. My father was deeply worried. Maybe you shouldn't go. I looked indifferent. In front of so many people, they wouldn't dare do anything to me. I have nothing to hide. Not going would only make me look guilty. As soon as I arrived at Yongchang Marquis Manor, Xianxia said the old marquise wanted to see me alone and dismissed my maid. I followed her all the way to the old marquise's courtyard, where it was eerily quiet, with only a sturdy nanny accompanying the old marquise. The old marquise sat upright on a rosewood chair. Giving me a fleeting glance, after sending Xianxia away, I had the nanny go and close the door. This was the opportunity. While the nanny had her back turned to me, I grabbed a vase and smashed it forcefully against her head. The sturdy nanny fell to the ground with a thud, dead. The old lady of the house never expected me to be so bold. Terrified, she knocked over the scalding tea beside her, unable to even cry out, and could only weakly gasp for help. I quickly walked over to finish the battle swiftly, and the old lady who also fell. When you go down to see my mother, remember to apologize. You can also reunite with your dear grandson, the heir of Yongchang who, no choice, I had to be a good person once again. Xianxia, who had reached the courtyard gate, heard the noise and came back to check, only to be knocked unconscious by me. Though she is despicable, she had no part in my mother's death. And I will not kill the innocent indiscriminately. I summoned the hidden guards given to me by the princess and had Jiang Yang escorted out of the Yongchang Marquis estate first. When Jiang Yang called me away, no one noticed. Now, as I returned to the group of women with my maid, everyone simply assumed I had just arrived. Just as the banquet was about to begin, chaos erupted. The elderly lady who was murdered, and the Marquis of Yongchang led a search for the killer. The guests who had come to offer their congratulations were suspected of being the murderer, and they immediately turned hostile, demanding to leave. The Marquis of Yongchang, who held great power, dared not offend them and had no choice but to let them go. Those of lower status than him were detained for questioning. As a result, he offended many people. The Marquis of Yongchang wanted to take me away for separate interrogation, but was stopped by the maid given to me by the princess. The maid presented a token. By the princess's order, County Mistress Jiari is her sworn sister. To see the county mistress is to see the princess, and no one may show disrespect. The Marquis of Yongchang wanted to detain me by force, but he had no evidence, and my maid was skilled in martial arts. Leaving him fuming with anger as he watched me leave, the emperor, who had spent years in the harem in pursuit of heirs, had exhausted his health. Now, in his advanced age, his condition was deteriorating day by day. The imperial hospital had long been under the control of the princess. The emperor truly believed, as the imperial physicians had told him, that he was merely getting older, feeling fatigued, and that he would be fine with more rest. After the disappearance of the Prince of Jiangnan, the court situation became turbulent and unstable. Various factions were eager to take sides, and their actions were continuous. Memorials recommending candidates for the crown prince were submitted to the emperor like snowflakes. The princess also played a role in fueling this situation. The emperor saw clearly that his subjects were not entirely loyal to him. No ruler can tolerate their power being threatened. Moreover, he believed himself to be the true son of heaven, blessed by the heavens, and destined for a long life. Therefore, he announced to his ministers that the matter of establishing an heir required careful consideration and should not be rushed. One night, when the emperor got up, he overheard a young eunuch outside the door addressing the chief eunuch, Eunuch Li, as godfather, offering warm and caring words. What a touching display of fatherly affection and filial piety. After all, as one grows old, the desire for children and grandchildren to gather around becomes stronger. The emperor began frequently summoning Princess Yuanzhao into the palace. Each time she entered the palace, the princess would bring the emperor some food she had personally prepared. Sometimes it was medicinal cuisine, sometimes easily digestible pastries, sometimes simple home-cooked dishes, and occasionally she would also tidy up the cluttered imperial desk. While the emperor reviewed memorials, she would quietly accompany him, grinding ink by his side. Only when the emperor actively inquired about her views on a certain issue in the court would the princess express her opinions, presenting them with reason and evidence. Neither arrogant nor impatient, the emperor praised, "My child is both virtuous and talented, and her filial piety is commendable." He then sighed, "What a pity she is not a boy. Nevertheless, I will leave a testamentary edict that whoever succeeds to the throne in the future must treat my child well." Princess Yuanzhao said calmly, "As his only child. Even if he recognizes my abilities, he still looks down on my gender. Little Ali, just watch one day. I will make gender irrelevant. What men can do, women can do too. Of course, I have to support the princess's grand ambitions. How about I smash a porcelain vase over that person's head to help you achieve your wish sooner?" The princess burst into laughter. "No need to rush. Just wait and enjoy the show, with peach blossoms in full bloom and grass growing as orioles fly." The palace holds a spring banquet every year, which the emperor and all his consorts attend. At the banquet, the emperor's most beloved consort Li suddenly vomited uncontrollably at the sight of a plate of braised carp. The imperial physician diagnosed consort Li as pregnant. The emperor was overjoyed. "Heaven has blessed us. I now have an heir. Reward her. Promote consort Li to noble consort Li." The emperor had only given birth to a princess with the late empress when he was 30 years old. After that, the imperial harem produced no more offspring. At the age of knowing one's destiny, To suddenly have another child, how could one not be overjoyed? The princess also congratulated her father with a beaming smile, pulling the imperial physician aside to inquire in detail. Showing a clear intention to personally go and care for Consort Li, the emperor was deeply gratified. Yuanshao, you finally have a younger brother of your own. You must protect this realm well for your imperial brother. The princess concealed the mockery in her eyes and casually asked the imperial physician, how many months along is Consort Li's pregnancy? The imperial physician bowed respectfully and replied, Your Highness, it has been 3 months. Crash! The emperor was furious, smashing the wine cup in his hand to the ground, shattering it into pieces. You wretch, how dare you commit adultery and defile the palace? Guards, take her away and beat her to death with clubs. Having experienced extreme joy and sorrow, the emperor passed away that very night. Everything is under the princess's control. As the ministers were fiercely arguing over who should ascend the throne, eunuch Li, who served by the emperor's side, came out with the imperial edict to announce it. The edict stated that the throne was to be passed to the princess. The ministers were in an uproar and demanded to verify the authenticity of the edict. The princess generously allowed them to inspect it as they pleased. The edict was a forgery, but no one knew that the princess had mastered 2 styles of calligraphy. For over a decade, she had secretly practiced imitating the emperor's handwriting, all for this very day. No one could detect any flaws. Leaving the ministers exchanging bewildered glances, one minister, unwilling to accept the outcome, raised an objection. The emperor had previously intended to appoint the Prince of Junnan's son as the crown prince. Then it occurred to him that the Prince of Junnan's son had been missing all along, and he angrily accused the princess. You killed the Prince of Junnan's son. You have the heart of a wolf. My father, the emperor, has just passed away, and you already want to rebel. The imperial guards behind the princess drew their weapons in unison, and the ministers shrank back in fear. The princess looked around and said, All the rumors before were deliberately spread by my father to protect me. As his only bloodline, I have been personally taught by him for many years, so that he could pass the throne to me after his passing. Since ancient times, there has never been a woman as emperor, the princess declared with conviction. Then let this princess set the precedent. The scene fell silent for a moment, and a minister asked, Marquis Yongchang, what is your view on this matter? The Marquis of Yongchang was the staunchest supporter of the crown prince of the Prince of Junnan in the matter of establishing the heir, but now, the son of the Prince of Junnan is missing, and the son of the Marquis of Yongchang is also missing. Moreover, he is aware of the schemes the Prince of Junnan's son and his own son had plotted against the princess. At this moment, the Marquis of Yongchang dares not recklessly step forward and make a fuss. Fearing that old accounts might be brought up, which could potentially lead to the elimination of his entire clan, this old fox is clutching his head, pretending to have a headache. The princess thoughtfully had the palace maid help him to rest aside. A minister asked my father, General He, your son used to be close with the Prince of Junnan's son. What's wrong with being close? Aren't young people allowed to make friends? My father looked at me, and I quietly took a step closer to the princess. My father gritted his teeth and took out the Imperial Guard's military tally, handing it to the princess. The emperor once personally stated that he would pass the throne to the princess and ordered us to protect her ascension to the throne. My father had taken a sword for the emperor, and as a trusted confidant of the emperor, his words still carried some credibility. Eunuch Li also came forward to testify. Before his passing, the emperor personally declared that the throne would be passed to the princess, and Consort Shu was present as well. Eunuch Li had long been bribed by the princess, and it was unclear what conditions the princess had promised Consort Shu. Consort Shu, supported by the palace maids, walked over with a weary expression. I can testify that before His Majesty passed away, he personally stated that the throne should be passed to the princess. I, my father, Consort Shu, and Eunuch Li were the first to kneel and shout, A nation cannot be without a ruler for even a day. We humbly request the new emperor to ascend the throne. Long live the emperor, long live the emperor. Over the years, the princess had also won over some people in the court. These people also knelt down to acknowledge the princess. We respectfully request your majesty to ascend the throne, long live the emperor, with someone taking the lead. The other ministers gradually lowered their heads and knelt down one after another. Even if they did not kneel, they had no choice but to do so upon seeing the armored imperial guards lining the palace corridors. The princess soon ascended the throne, adopting the era name Yuanzhao. Your majesty asked me what reward I desired. You helped me eliminate my greatest rival and secured a powerful ally. You are a great hero, I answered truthfully. In the past, I only wanted to avenge my mother. Now that my vengeance is complete, my wish is fulfilled, and I have nothing more to desire. His Majesty pondered for a moment. I grant you the title of Prince of Eternal Joy, along with a princely residence. You shall assist me in fulfilling my long-cherished wish, to promote women's education, select female officials, elevate the status of women, and help them become self-reliant. There were many voices in the court opposing my appointment as a prince. Whoever protested the loudest, His Majesty would send his secret guards to investigate them. None of these ministers are innocent, some are corrupt and accept bribes, others seize commoners' daughters, and some even condone the misdeeds of their servants. For each one investigated, His Majesty metes out severe punishment. Suddenly, the voices opposing my appointment as a prince fell silent. I was promoted from County Princess Jiari to Prince Changle. My father also disapproved of my being in theft as a prince. Our family already has a first-rank general. To be in theft as a prince would be too conspicuous. My father took a timely stand and contributed to the emperor's rise to power. The emperor infeft him as a first-rank general to protect the nation, which is a tremendous honor for our family. I nodded. You're right, father. Our family really shouldn't be too ostentatious. You should resign from your official position to the emperor. My father was stunned. I looked at him seriously and said, Father, do you know what my mother's name was? She wasn't Jiu Mingzhu, she was Lin Daohua, a name given by her adoptive parents, hoping she would live as brilliantly as peach blossoms. Many years ago, I found my mother's remains and buried them in the peach grove on the estate. Haven't you always said you miss my mother to the bone? My mother misses you too. Go and be with her. My mother's remains have long been lost. As a child, powerless and without influence, how could I possibly have found them? My father now feels guilty toward me and my mother. He gave me a deep look before turning and leaving. The next day, he went to the palace to resign from his official post, and the emperor gladly agreed. After my father left, it felt as if a huge stone had been lifted from my heart, and everything suddenly became clear. My feelings toward my father are complicated, and I don't know how to face him. He is my biological father. Yet he lived with the person who caused my mother's death for 12 years, sending his own child away while raising someone else's child by his side. If it weren't for the chance encounter with Her Majesty when I was young and her help, my father already has a house full of children, so there is no place for me in the general's mansion. I recognized His Majesty in the mountains, never expecting that by chance I would help him eliminate his rival and repay a childhood favor. It seems fate has its own way of weaving our paths together. After leaving a house and a shop for Jiangxi's pregnant wife, Lin Jinna, to secure her livelihood, I sold everything from the general's mansion. With the money in hand, I moved into the Prince of Changle's residence and threw myself wholeheartedly into my new goal. Seeing me busy and constantly on the move for the sake of the girls' school over the years, His Majesty thought I deserved a reward. My dear minister, do you want a man? You can choose from princes, nobles, and scions of distinguished families. Your Majesty, I only want men, not marriage. Is that acceptable? The emperor laughed heartily and sent a group of men around my age the very next day. From among them, I selected 3 that I liked, making it clear that I was not choosing a husband, but only companions. Those willing to stay would be well treated, and those unwilling to leave would not be blamed by His Majesty. 3 handsome gentlemen looked at each other, each expressing their willingness to stay. 2 years later, I gave birth to a daughter and named her he/she. I went to the palace to ask His Majesty for a male sterilization drug. I had no intention of having another child, nor did I want my daughter to have half-siblings competing for power and influence in the years to come. Princess side story. My father ascended the throne with the support of my mother's family. But once he had firmly secured his position, he turned against them. He poisoned my mother to death, found a trivial excuse to banish my maternal grandfather's family to a harsh, remote border region to guard the frontier, and forbade them from returning to the capital without an imperial decree. In the capital, I was left alone as a young child, but fortunately, I was the only imperial heir in the palace. When the emperor has other offspring, my fate will be the same as that of my maternal clan. Eunuch Li, who serves by the emperor's side, once received favors from my mother, and the head of the imperial hospital was saved by my grandfather when he was young. Thus, I successfully administered a sterility drug to the emperor. For many years thereafter, no more children were born in the palace. The emperor, who already had difficulty producing heirs, believed he was being punished by heaven for his misdeeds. I am the only princess in the palace. The southern prince of the town invited me to hunt in the mountains, hoping to make me owe him a life-saving favor, thereby gaining my support. My father only has the intention of making him the crown prince, and he is not the only suitable candidate. With my support, his chances would be great. Why hasn't he ever considered that I also want to compete for that position? I have arranged for people to ensure that the son of the Prince of Jiangnan and his supporters, the son of the Marquis of Yongchang and the son of the General of the Dragon Guard are hunted down and killed in the mountains. These individuals truly have some skill. They actually managed to escape. It will be difficult to have such a good opportunity again in the future. What a pity. Fortunately, little He Li has resolved this tricky matter for me. The moment she appeared, I recognized her as the little girl who had cried like a flower cat all those years ago. Just like me, she had a mother who died and a father who didn't care. If you want something, you have to fight for it with all your might. After hearing the two stories above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Looking forward to hearing from you. If you liked this story, don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.